So right, what I do is I just kind of have a double check, put in my stone over the bit of metal. So I've got an idea exactly how far I'm going to cut either side of that hole. It's probably a good idea to use a pen or just scratch maybe a line, just give yourself a guide. Not going right to the outside of the stone, but you have to go quite big, because like I say, they're cut quite shallow, so you need to cut, I mean the angles on the side are quite shallow, yeah, so you need to cut quite a long hole, if I remember correctly. So these pliers have got small teeth on. I don't think any jeweller is going to recommend that, because working with precious metal, any pliers with teeth on is going to mark what you're holding, but I've found these so useful so many times. I'm probably going to be the only jeweller that says have some on your bench. So I'm going out a bit. I've got a bit of an angle on there, and then I'm just sort of aiming to finish at the end of my little straight saw cut. This is just like a very quick starting off little shape. And then I'll put the stone on and then see how much I need to adjust it. Yeah, just needs to go a lot wider, and then it'll sit. I don't think I've got to go too much longer, but I definitely need to go wider, and then it'll sit down much nicer into that hole. So that stone is sitting in there nicely, and I know that because when I look around the bottom of it, looking at the gaps with my 10 times loop, there are no gaps. It's just sitting in there nicely in that shape. And also another thing is it doesn't slide about, it doesn't slide backwards and forwards, left and right. So that's a good shape, but the stone is still too high. So I'm just gonna open it up evenly all the way around, and then the stone will sit lower, but also shouldn't slide around because the shape of that hole is nice. Remember, when it's finished, we don't wanna, with the stone on there, you don't wanna see any metal around the stone looking down on it when it's a finished collet. So I've set my dividers at about 1 mil, and I'm gonna carefully draw around it. Cut it out. When you're shaping these up, it can be tricky, get illusions from your inner edge and the outer edge. It can sort of hide what's going on. Like you can see mine's a bit more flat on the right side, so I need to reduce it a bit there. So anyway, I know about these illusions, so I'm looking for them, so I want to point out what happens. Also, check your stone as well as tidying up the outside. You don't want the points going right over the edge. There's going to be V-claws going on the outside, so you want a little bit of stone sticking out, but it doesn't have to be loads. Okay, so making the V-claws, you need a long, flat bit of metal, and you always need a wider bit of metal than you imagine. So here's the bit of metal I've just prepared for making the claws. There's my collet. There's the bit of metal I'm going to use to fold up the V-claws. And when you cut out the center section, there's less left than you would imagine. So always start off with more, definitely more than you're going to need. Right, cutting that line all the way down the middle. Check this out. When you push on that, you need to cut a straight line, but when you push, your saw blade bends a little bit, even when it's really, really tight. That's no good. That means your saw is only really cutting the end, it's not cutting down the middle. So to kind of cheat a little bit, this is just a flat strip of metal, so I don't think there's any harm in doing this at all. Just put a very gentle curve on it, all the way down the middle. Now, I mean, I curved that quite a lot, but now I can push on that and my saw blade can go right across it at any point. No difficulty at all. Actually, the middle has now become the easiest part to saw. So, another thing I've done before, I've sharpened up my dividers and really scored a deep line down the middle, and that actually helps as a guide for your saw blade to fit in, for your initial cuts to really line up down the middle. So yeah, just carefully saw away. We're going to be filing it after this, so don't worry too much about neatness. If you go off a little bit wonky, it's not the end of the world. As for going through it, go down about halfway maybe, and then leave the rest for filing. Okay, took a few minutes, just went up and down it with a saw blade. Probably not even halfway, just a little bit less. Leaving it curved still helps you out when you're doing the needle filing bit. So a square one, preferably nice and sharp. Just hook it in there, file away. Right, so yeah, get it flat, because we're going to turn it up now. So yeah, what I do is, I like using parallels because they open parallel and they're nice and wide as well, so it helps you out doing this sort of job. Then you just got to try and fold it up a little bit. What I'm going to do is try and get a little bit of a bend down all the way. So I'm just tweaking it, moving it along. Haven't got to use these pliers. Definitely recommended use something with a bit of width. It's just one of those things, you just do it. No one really tells you exactly what you got to do, you just get it done. So I'm going to anneal that now, because that's been hammered and bent around and stuff, so I've put a bit of a curve in that, a bit of a bend, a bit of a fold. Now I'm going to anneal it, and then fold it up a bit more. Okay, so annealed it. Watch this. You can tweak it a bit more if you want with pliers, but I like doing this. Yeah, it's kind of fun. Just hold it, just pushing one side down, hold it with pliers, tweaking it up a little bit. See how it's going? Another way to take it a little bit further is hold one side of it in your parallel pliers. And then you can just look and you can see where it's gappy. I can see a little section there where it's raised up, so just hammer it down. There's only a thin little bit of silver, you haven't got to really do anything mad to it. So what I've done in the past is get to this stage, and then I will, because we need it to fold up a little bit more, so I put a saw groove through it, and then it can fold up a little bit more. Try and cut 3/4 of the way through it with a thin saw blade. Okay, I think we got it. So that I should be able to squeeze that closed a little bit more. There we go, lovely. Yeah, it needs a little bit more of a squeeze, but basically, yeah, just one saw cut with a thin saw blade, and then you should be able to fold it up enough to get it just right. A little bit of solder on the end. Hopefully I can get that to run along. It might not be enough either, so I'll put a little bit on from the other end if I need to. Just warm it up slowly, slowly. Where you put the saw blade in, it should be nice and clean. See that? Not quite. There you go. Yeah, just about got that to go along the whole length. So this claw gonna be about that long. Stone has not set this side. Stone has set that side. So I was tapering down towards the bottom. So there's the bezel sitting in there. I'm going to cut it off like that, so up to that point. I didn't cut right up to that corner, I basically cut off that inside edge. So I cut to the inner point, not that outer point. So that, if it sits parallel with that edge, wants to sit like that. That's a bit ugly. So we're gonna file it so that edge is going vertical, and then that outer edge will be going at an angle. So not like that, that's how it wants to sit now. We're gonna file it so it sits more naturally like that. And that'll look nicer. And we do that by holding it with the groove facing you, with a 3-sided file, not a square. Excuse me, hello? We have a guest. Excuse me, I'm making a video, actually. Yeah, you need to not be here. So yeah, three-sided file, because the square one, do you remember after we cut the groove with the square file, we folded it up some more, so there's like a steeper angle, so the tri-square actually suits that groove really well, actually. It'll give it a lot more, put it at a nicer angle, give it a lot more finesse as well. You don't want it really chunky on the bottom of the V. It's going thinner. Nice if it goes thin in all directions. Okay, can you see the end? Can you see the end where I put the file in there? It needs a bit more work, but you can get the gist of what I'm up to. Welcome to the new jewellery making television show, All That Glitters. It's day 3, and all Chris has done is made 2 little triangles that don't match and an eye shape. I think making this kind of thing is good practice, not only for making this, like you sat down and made these, yeah. You didn't only learn to make these, you practiced the skill of making jewellery. So you've now got a bit more experience making fiddly little things that are difficult to hold on to, making them accurately, and then the skill you acquire will help you out next time you sit at the bench. So everything you do is like a little stepping stone of progress. So if you're learning to make this kind of thing, you're going to want to see what the teacher's doing. This is my work, ready to move on, I think. Not super accurate, but pretty good for something small. It's fine for putting that on. And there's also, when those claws are on there, you can still adjust them. You can still get rubber wheels down the sides and disc them back and stuff. I mean, you may make one of those, have it cast for the future when you need it. Like, you don't want the claws as wide and stuff. You can adjust things once they're soldered together. But it is quite nice if you can make it exactly how you want it and then just get it all together. It's a quicker way to work, but it's not the end of the world if you don't like the look of it or whatever happens. Oh, there we go. Rescued it. Okay, so try your best to get it on straight, because even with a round claw, a round bit of wire, you can, I mean, you should try your best to get, every time you put a claw on, try to get it on straight when soldering, but you can get away with a very minor tweak with a round claw. That, you can't really hold it and do anything with it. You can't twist it, it's not going to flex, can't pull it out without damaging your nice, like, sharp corners. So you've got to try extra hard to get it on straight. And also, when you do one, definitely put the stone on, make sure you like how the stone's sitting. Can that stone be set? Is there enough metal above it? Because the second one has to mirror the first one. Has to all be nice and symmetrical. So you're using the position and angles and stuff for that first one to get the second one on correct. So if that's wrong, then the second one's going to be wrong. A little bit of paper wrapped around a file. Just going to touch across this flat bit on top. I would always do this because I like to polish things out before setting. So getting all these bits that go under the stone all polished nicely is always good. Makes the stone, especially diamond, you've got to have them polished, because if there's any sort of little black stains in or anything, it's going to sort of show under the stone and make the stone look worse than it really is. Touching the curved section, but being careful not to round off any corners I want to keep sharp. So I like to make things really sharp. It ensures you're getting the accurate results for measurements, angles, and symmetry that you're after. And if things are too sharp, like they're going to be uncomfortable to wear, then you can round them off on purpose, like a gentle touch of paper, or even just polishing slightly heavy on the sharp bits on purpose. That will help you out. So when I'm checking this over, yeah, kind of finished, but I'm checking it over to see where I could be more accurate. That's not perfect. That little edge of that corner needs taking off. That needs sharpening up, that little point where it goes in there. Seeing how parallel this is to the outer wall to the inner wall. It goes a bit thick there, a bit thin there, a bit thick there, so that needs work. But curvature and stuff is nice. The actual size of it is nice for the stone. Dropped it for the 100th time while making this video. all my symmetry going across, looking at the side, angles all right. The stone will drop down, yeah. I mean, these claws are, I wouldn't want them to be any shorter at a finished stage like this, but the stone will drop down a little bit, and so that amount of metal, because they're tapering down to a point, as the stone goes lower, there's less of this kind of distance going over the stone, so it looks a bit over the top, but that's kind of has to be like that because I made it tapering down. And so with its length, the longer they are, they'd be a little bit wider if it went up higher. So yeah, checking on my joins. Solder joins are good, and then solder joins are clean, like tidied up, rubber wheeled it, hit all the edges. I've left the tops of the claws slightly like that. I don't want to take any more off them, because if I was going to set, you're just taking more and more height off them, and I've kind of gone to sort of minimum really with the height of those. Just general look around it. I'm not too concerned with the top because that's where the stone sits. I just did that so the stone sits down at the height it needs to be, or what I wanted it to be. Just the back hole would make it look nice because people can see that after the stone set. And yeah, just generally checking over it like that. So it's finished, but it needs work. But that's enough for this video.